So let's have a look at this catapult. Got this one from eBay. You may have seen it on one of my shorts. Quite a nice looking piece of kit. Aesthetically pleasing. Usual type of band gripping mechanism. We'll have another look at that in a minute or two. Got fixed sights, you can't move them side to side. So if I look at this one, which is featured in one of my very early videos, and I quite like this catapult, it's got movable sights with just a grub screw and the sights slide. Got a resin one here, similar mechanism, not so tidy, slightly clunkier screws, but it works just as well. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the sights on top of the forks. I tried to use them, but all that happens is I end up getting loads of frame strikes, which is why this is a bit of a mess around here. So back to this one then. Nice, comfortable, it's a reasonable weight, fits nicely in the hand. It's smaller than the original one that I looked at, the one with the wooden handles. Let's weigh them, see where we're at. So this is coming at 139 grams, 140 grams for argument's case. This one is 250 grams, so almost double the weight. And the resin one comes in at 98 grams, so about 2/3 the weight of the chromed catapult. So if we do a side-by-side comparison, you can see the one with the wooden handle, the stainless steel one, is quite a bit bigger, and perhaps that's just the Chinese cutting back on their materials. And let's be honest, you're only pulling some rubber bands, it doesn't need to be immense. I like both of these, so they're both quite aesthetically pleasing. What they're made of, so I've got a couple of magnets, let's have a look. Obviously the steel screws in the resin one. The body's not magnetic, but the screws are. So what does that tell us? Well, not an awful lot really. So it could be stainless steel under there. So the band holding mechanism, I mentioned this earlier. I had some real problems with this and I couldn't figure out why at first. But if we have a look, you might be able to see why. So you'll notice that the clamp is actually swiveling quite a lot, and that makes it quite difficult to get the band in quite evenly or straight. And I was also a little bit irritated by these bands. I bought these from a Chinese supplier, and I like to have the cup, if you like, of the band as it joins a pouch uppermost. And these seem to have a twist in them. It's probably because they're so thin. And because they're so thin, they're not fitting into the clamps very well. Not unless you open the clamps really, really wide. Once they're in and fastened down, they're more than adequate. They're quite secure. But let's have a look with a thicker band. So these blue bands are significantly thicker. And they seem to be more evenly tied. I quite like them. Let's have a look at the difference in thickness in the bands and see if it makes a difference to the way we can mount them in the catapult. So yeah, you can see just about, I reckon, that the blue bands are thicker than the yellow ones. They seem to go in a bit easier, and that's, I think, because they've got more body, more resistance as they push their way past the clamps. And the issue, I think, was that the teeth on the clamps are quite long, which makes them really good to clamp the bands in, but a bit awkward to put the bands in there in the first place. But they're more than secure enough. There are ridges in those handles, which makes gripping them a little better. It could get really slippy if they were highly polished and smooth. So back to the yellow bands again. As I say, they're a nice catapult, comfortable in the hand. They clamp the bands well enough. So am I pleased with this? Yeah, I quite like it. Anyway, that's about it. Thanks for watching. Bye.